Once I've done that, I'm going to choose the Find and Replace option and click on Upload. When I do that, the software will upload my template and it's ready to go. So here, if I click on Coronavirus Distribution Election Form, here is my form. So now I have the ability to use this form for any of my distribution records. So let me show you an example of how it gets populated. I'm going to go ahead and I'll add it to this record down here. All right, so on step 2, at the bottom of step 2, that's where we can attach a template. Keep in mind we could do this in batch too, but we'll go over that next week. So I'm going to click on Attach Document Templates. I'm going to go find my template that I just loaded, attach it. This is when the merge process happens. So now what I want you to see is if I click on my template, wherever I had placeholders in that template, it will be populated with Hermione's information. Let's just give that a second here. There we go. So see how it says Hogwarts School of Magic? We scroll down. Here's all of Hermione's information. So remember, wherever you had those placeholders, it populates the information. And we can do that in batch. But again, we're going to go over that next week. I don't want to give you too much information today. So that's what we do with a Word document. I'm going to go back in and I'm going to show you a PDF this time. And the reason I want to show you PDFs in particular is because you can do this with record keeper forms. So what I have done, I'm going to drag this American Funds form over here. In here, I have inserted placeholders. The difference between a PDF and a Word document, you don't have to have the exclamation at exclamation in front of the placeholder. That's the only difference. Otherwise, you're going to come into the form and you're going to drop the placeholder into those fields. You can either right-click, then choose Rename Field, and you can add it that way. You can also double-click on it, and the same thing will happen. So you'll want to just go through and insert those placeholders. I do want to mention in particular with record keeper forms, some of the forms are locked and there isn't really any way for us to get around that. So if they're locked, you can't edit them, but you can still load them into the template editor and at least create a distribution package with them. It's just not going to populate information. To date, the only one I haven't been able to crack is John Hancock. I did get an unlocked version from them. I'm happy to share that with anybody that needs the John Hancock form. I just don't know if it's the most current version. If it's not, I'll see about trying to get a new one. So you're going to go through that same process. You're going to first create a placeholder for your template. So I'm just going to grab this one, click on Clone, all this American Funds webinar example. So I'm creating my placeholder for it. It goes to the bottom of the list. And now I'm going to go to my computer and I'm going to upload my template. There it is. And then upload. So now I just uploaded my new template. So I can use those again individually or in batch to create distribution packages, cover letters, notices, directives, whatever you need to do with those. All right, so the next thing I would like to cover with you guys is the status manager. I've mentioned this during demos and training sessions. What we give you out of the box, you are not stuck with. So you can see I've got a bunch of them in here. Sometimes they're not going to jive with our process. So what we're going to do is go over to Module Options, scroll down to Status Manager. And over on the left, this is the status name that we give you out of the box. Keep in mind, we do have custom statuses down here too. So what you're going to do is you just need to indicate, we'll call, instead of complete, we'll call this finished. I'm going to get rid of that one. Maybe instead of needs participant verification, we just want participant verification. So kind of generic customization, but you get the idea. So you'll go through, you'll override what we give you, and then down here you can create any custom statuses, and I've added these from demos in the past just to give you an idea of what other people are doing. The only thing that I would note in here is that anything that has this little info button next to it, these are used during automation. And what I mean by that is if you are going to be using our portals, the participant and plan sponsor portals, these are the statuses that are used automatically. So let me give you an example. When you have initiated a distribution record and it goes to the participant for data collection, the software will automatically put the status of needs participant input, it's this one, needs participant input on the record. When the participant is done and it goes to the plan sponsor, it's automatically going to put needs sponsor input on it. So the point is, it's using these automatically, and if you override the names of these statuses, it might be confusing. If you do want to change them, just make sure that you call them something similar if you're going to be using our portals. Okay? So anything you change, go ahead and hit save. And those statuses will show up in your drop-down menu, and they'll also show up in the drop-down menu within a record too. Anything that you add, here's my finished status, for example. Next thing I want to show you is the distribution count. I've had some people contact me asking, well, how many records do I have left? So it depends on what billing method you went with. There's a block of plans option and there's a block of distributions option. This is for the block of distributions. So it'll just show you how much you purchased. In my case, I have 10 million. But it'll show you how many you purchased, and then it will show you how many you actually have. So I only have 53 records at this point. So that's really all that is. It's just a way for you to easily see where you're at and whether or not you need to buy another block of distributions. The last thing I am going to cover with you guys today is the notification manager. Before I go into the notification manager first, I want to show you how to set alerts manually. This is important so it makes more sense when we're talking about automating them. So notice these red flags that I have on my dashboard. If I hover over them, it tells me why it's there. If we go into a record, this is where I can manually add an alert. So maybe the alert is no picture identification. So we're still waiting on that. Click on Save. It's going to add a flag. And when I save the record, I want to show you it will appear on the dashboard for us too. Okay, so there it is. If I hover over it, no picture identification. So that is how you manually add a flag. I want to show you how to automate them with notifications now. So rather than you manually doing it, it's just going to appear when it's supposed to. So if we go to Module Options, again, anything that touches multiple plans, when in doubt, it's in Module Options. We're going to scroll down to the Notifications Manager, and we have two categories of notifications that we're going to be able to put to use. We've got our time-based notifications, and we have our database notifications. Time-based notifications are based on a number of days, and you tell the software when the clock starts. I'd like to use this top one as my example when I'm explaining this to customers. The on and off switch, this is really important. When you sign up for the software, by default, all the notifications that you see are turned on. That might be overwhelming while you're getting used to the software. So I always tell folks, go ahead and shut them off. Just shut them off until you figure out which ones are going to be most useful to you. Then you can come back into the software and you can turn them on and maybe edit them, maybe add a few more, maybe delete some, up to you. The next thing is the type. So the type is what they're used for. We have two options. We can either use them for just distributions, just loans, or it's a notification for both types of records. Description, we want to know why we're being emailed, so it's important to put a description on the notification. In my example today, I have one that I've set up for force out, so for a force out campaign. The status is what the status has to be in order for the notification to be triggered at a certain date. So in this case, I have awaiting payment and package sent as my two statuses. So what will happen is if the status is still awaiting payment or package sent, or maybe you don't care what the status is, you just select everything, the notification will only be triggered if those two statuses are used. So it's just really drilling down and customizing when the status is triggered more. Or I'm sorry, the notification is triggered. The date field is next. So the date field is when the clock starts. We've got date started, so that's the date you entered into automation. What I mean by that is it's the date that the record went out for data collection through the portal. Date initiated is the date you set up the record. So it's not necessarily being collected for anything. It's just added to the dashboard. Last status update is the last time the status of the record was updated. Last update is the last time that the record was updated in general. And then last day worked is the date of termination, which is the one that I use for this record. Number of days is the number of days from when the clock starts. So in my case, number of days from the date of termination, the notification will go out. And I have 30 days, number of days until reminder. If you really want to make sure that nothing slips between the cracks, after your notification goes out in 30 days, you're going to be reminded every 7 days that you still need to force this person out if the status hasn't changed. So if it's still sitting in those two statuses, no changes have been made, it's going to keep reminding you. So maybe if you're out of the office and you missed the first one, for example, that would be useful. Now we get into alerts. So alerts is where we're going to make sure that red flag appears on our dashboard when it's time to do something. So in my case, I'm going to get a red flag, and if I hover over it, it tells me it's time to force the person out. So I'm not only going to get a 30-day notification, I'm going to get followed up with every 7 days, and I'm going to get a red flag. Now we need to decide who it goes to. So who does this notification need to go to? TPA, sponsor, participant. In this case, I want it to go to the TPA. So I'm going to find my time-based email template. Remember, you can customize these in email settings. And so in 30 days, whoever is assigned to the record internally, so whoever the administrator is for the record, is going to get an email saying it's time to force so-and-so out. Database notifications, very similar. The difference is we want to know when data is changing. We don't really care about the timing. And down here, the best example of this is the status changing. But we have a bunch of different options, so it doesn't have to be just the status. Maybe you want to know when any field has changed. Maybe you want to know if the Social Security number changed. Maybe you want to know if the amounts changed. You just indicate what field is changing, and then whether it changed to something in particular. In the example I have up here, I want to be notified when the status changes to deed sponsor verification. Or it could just be a generic change. I don't care what it changed to. I just want to know that it changed. And then finally, we can include an alert. So we get that red flag on the dashboard, and then we tell the software who the notification goes to. So again, I would just shut all of these off when you first sign up. Make sure you're comfortable with what you want to be notified about, and then go ahead and set them up. That was my last topic today. We took the whole time.